Hello, welcome to Creative Writing. I am Armin Rose, and I will be your guide as we go through the contents of this course. This is Part 3, The Introduction to Poetry. What is poetry? We'll explain it using a poem, A Poetry by Eleanor Farjeon. What is poetry? Who knows? Not a rose, but the scent of a rose. Not the sky, but the light in the sky. Not the fly, but the gleam of the fly. Not the sea, but the sound of the sea. Not myself, but what makes me. See, hear, and feel something that prose cannot. And what it is, who knows? Poetry is a writing chosen and arranged to create a certain emotional response through meaning, sound, and rhythm. The poet chooses words carefully, and poetry is usually written in lines. Like the parts of a building, the structure of poetry is what makes a poem a poem. The title. Some poems have titles, and some do not. Most titles are the first line in a poem, a recurring line in the poem, or the main thought or message of the poem. The line. The line is a division of poetry, like a sentence or a phrase. A line may be long or short, and may be counted by accents or syllables. Lines are not necessarily complete sentences or even complete thoughts. The stanza is a division in poetry, like a paragraph in prose. A stanza is a group of lines whose rhyme scheme is usually followed throughout the poem. Stanzas are usually in groups of 2 to 14 lines, depending on its form. Free verse poems follow no rules regarding where to divide stanzas. Much like structure, the elements of poetry are what makes a poem a piece of poetry, but it has more to do with its contents. The subject and the theme. The subject is what the poem is talking about. These are persons, places, concrete objects, or specific behavior and events. Examples of subjects are your mother, the president, the mountains, flowers, playing in the beach, Christmas, or summertime. Theme is what the poem is really about. These are abstract ideas, thoughts, and feelings. Examples of themes would be love, nationalism, caring for others, or the joy of freedom and independence. Rhythm is the flow of the beat in a poem. Rhythm can be fast or slow, depending on mood and subject of poem. You can measure rhythm in meter by counting the beats in each line. These are examples of a fast rhythm poem and a slow rhythm poem. The Pickety Fence is a fast rhythm poem. It is meant to imitate the sound of a stick as it goes through a fence. The pickety fence, the pickety fence. Give it a lick, it's a pickety fence. Give it a lick, it's a clickety fence. Give it a lick, it's a lickety fence. Give it a lick, give it a lick, give it a lick with a rickety stick. Pickety, 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 pick. Where Are You Now is a slow rhythm poem. It is meant to give the illusion of lights going on one by one as the sun goes down the sky. When the night begins to fall and the sky begins to glow, you look up and see the tall city of lights begin to grow. In rows and little golden squares, the lights come out, first here, then there, behind the window panes, as though a million billion bees had built through golden hives and honeycombs above you in the air. Form is the arrangement of lines, spacing, and whether or not the lines rhyme in some manner can define the form of a poem. There are many forms of poetry according to the number of lines per stanza, the arrangement of lines in a stanza, and the subject of the poetry. These will be discussed in detail in the next lesson. Imagery is the use of words to create pictures or images in your mind. It appeals to the five senses: smell, sight, hearing, taste, and touch. Olfactory imagery are details about scents and odors. Visual imagery are details about shapes and colors. Auditory imagery are details about sounds and music. Gustatory imagery are details about flavors. And tactile imagery are details about texture, temperature, and weight. Voice is the speaker in a poem. The speaker can be the poet himself or a character, object, or animal in a poem. There can be one speaker, two speakers, or multiple speakers. Most poems have only one speaker. An example of a poem with two speakers is The Walrus and the Carpenter. And an example of a poem with multiple speakers would be The Blind Man and the Elephant. Tone is an author's attitude towards his or her subject matter. It is what the author wants us to feel. We can figure out tone by an author's word choice, punctuation, sentence structure, and figures of speech. Sample tone words are sympathetic, serious, ironic, sad, bitter, humorous, angry, apologetic, critical, proud. Mood is the atmosphere or emotion in the poem created by the poet. It is what the readers usually feel. The poet uses words and images to create mood. Sample mood words are cheerful, gloomy, bleak, eerie, tense, calm, ominous, uncertain, miserable. Poetic devices are not always present in every poem, but they make it have a distinct sound or give deeper meaning to the subject or theme. Figures of speech are tools that writers use to create images or paint pictures in your mind. Similes, metaphors, and personification are three figures of speech that create imagery. Figures of speech are also used to emphasize meaning or create a new meaning. Denotation and connotation give the literal and implied meanings of words. Sound. Poets use interesting sound in their poems. After all, poems are meant to be heard. Sound devices are also figures of speech. In this lesson, we will learn about the sound devices of rhyme, repetition, alliteration, and onomatopoeia. Rhymes are words that end with the same sound. Rhyme is the most common sound device in poetry. Rhyming sounds don't have to be spelled the same way. Poets can choose from a variety of different rhyming patterns. The four most common patterns are AABB, ABAB, ABBA, and ABCB. In the AABB pattern, the first two lines will rhyme, followed by the next two lines. In ABAB, the rhymes are in alternating lines. In ABBA, the first and fourth lines rhyme, and the second and third lines rhyme. In ABCB, the second and fourth lines rhyme, but the first and third lines do not rhyme. Repetition occurs when poets repeat words, phrases, or lines in a poem. It creates a pattern and increases rhythm. Repetition strengthens feelings, ideas, and mood in a poem. The Pickety Fence that I read earlier is an example of poetry using repetition. Alliteration is the repetition of the first consonant sound in words. Examples of alliteration are Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. She sells seashells by the seashore every Saturdays and Sundays. Betty Botter bought a bit of better butter to make the bitter batter better. Consonants and assonants may be used instead of alliteration. In consonants, consonant sounds are repeated within the words, but they don't necessarily have to be the first sound in the words. An example of consonants is hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. Assonance is when a vowel sound is repeated in a line. The vowel sound does not necessarily have to be in the beginning of the word. An example of assonance is the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. Words that represent the actual sound of something are onomatopoeia. Examples of onomatopoeia are dogs bark, cats purr, thunder booms, rain drips, and the clock ticks. Whenever we use the sound that objects or animals create, we are using onomatopoeia. Finding meaning in poetry. To find meaning in a poem, readers ask questions as they read. There are many things to pay attention to when reading a poem. In the title, does it provide clues about the topic, the mood, the speaker, or the author's purpose? In rhythm, is it fast or slow, and why? For sound devices, what effects do they have? For imagery, what pictures do we make in our minds? For figures of speech, what do they tell us about the subject? In voice, who is speaking? Is it the poet, the character? Does it have one voice or more? In the author's purpose, is it sending a message, sharing its feelings, telling a story, being funny, or being descriptive? In mood, does it make you happy, sad, angry, thoughtful, silly, excited, or frightened? And in plot, what is happening in the poem? Remember, to make meaning, readers must make connections and tap into their background knowledge and prior experiences as they read. The ideas discussed in this video are based on the content standards of the Department of Education. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lesson.